Of all, Sarah Palin was asked yesterday when the Ted Stevens conviction came down about what she was going to do. She had a different reaction than she's saying today. The news now is, and again, this information just into us as we were beginning this newscast, and you heard me share with it, is that she is now saying that he should, quote, step aside. This is what Sarah Palin said yesterday.
I'm confident that Senator Stevens, from this point on, will do the right thing for the state of Alaska.
Should Stevens resign? Governor, should Stevens resign?
For the senator next week. Thank you, guys. Governor, will
Thank
you
you,
vote
guys.
for the senator
Thank you.
next week?
Come on inside.
You hear the reporters shouting out the questions. Should Stevens resign? Should Stevens resign? One of the reporters who's been asking Sarah Palin lots of questions over the years is Erica Bolstad. She's a political beat reporter with the Anchorage Daily News. What do you make of this? We've been going with this story that Sarah Palin and John McCain were saying two different things because they were, and I think everyone saw it right there in that news conference that she held yesterday, that impromptu news conference. And now we're getting information, which we have confirmed here at CNN, that she's asking him to step aside. What gives?
Well, I don't actually think that her explanation is all that different. If you think about it, she has been, from the beginning of the investigation, this corruption investigation, she has actually been one of the people in Alaska who has been calling on Senator Stevens to answer questions, about what has been going on until he was actually indicted.
I guess what I'm asking you is, as a political reporter who has, I imagine, a lot of keen savvy into these kinds of things, would you not have expected that yesterday, as soon as this happened, John McCain and Sarah Palin would have been on the same page, would have talked about this, or their staff members would have talked to each other and said, this is what we're going to say, instead of two different responses?
I don't actually think that their responses were all that much different. And John McCain didn't come out with his response until this morning. And yesterday, hers was fairly qualified, and it was not nearly as friendly or as nice as some of the other ones that came out of the elected officials in Alaska.
But she's asked, though, Erica, she's asked by reporters, should he resign? Should he resign? Should he resign? And she doesn't answer the question, and she walks away. That
she should have answered the question.
Doesn't sound definitive.
No, she should have answered the question, and that I think has been a consistent criticism of her on the campaign trail. But she definitely should have answered that question yesterday.
All right, let me ask you this. What gives? We're down here in the lower 48, we're trying to figure out what, in most states, and in states where I've lived, here's how it works. A corrupt official is removed from office by a governor, then that governor appoints a replacement, and then they hold a special election. That's usually the way it works. What's going on in Alaska?
Well, it's pretty complicated, and there's actually there's no rule that someone who's convicted of a felony can't serve in office. And one of the biggest judges of what will actually happen here is the electorate in Alaska. They get to decide on Tuesday who they want in this seat.
Boy, here's a crazy question, but only because we have some crazy producers who were having a conversation with me before I was on the air, and we were talking about this. Is it possible by Alaska law that if, for some reason, Sarah Palin doesn't become our next vice president, she could appoint herself the next senator in that place?
You know, here's what actually has to happen is if he's elected, then the Senate would have to act first. The Senate would actually have to decide that they want to expel him from the Senate. So that's the first thing that has to happen.
But could she do that? Does the governor have the power to replace or appoint? And if that were so, could she appoint herself?
Well, the way that it works is that there's a special election in 60 to 90 days, and there's some question whether the governor has the ability to appoint someone as sort of a seat warmer in that 60 to 90 days. And then there's a special election. And the most likely scenario would be that she would possibly consider running for that seat.
Wow. things get curiouser and curiouser, don't they?
Yes.
To quote Yogi Berra. Hey, thanks so much. You've been a great guest. Erica
you.
Bolstead with the Anchorage Daily News. By the way, in case you came to us late, the story is that Sarah Palin has now put out a statement, and CNN has confirmed that she is going to ask Ted Stevens to step aside. We're following up on a story we told you about earlier about McCain staffers as well.